Welcome to the Private Practice Startup Podcast, where we help ambitious private practitioners across the globe to brand themselves and grow their dream practices. We chat with successful private practitioners, business coaches, and marketing experts, bringing you tons of practice building ninja tips. Visit privatepracticestartup.com for awesome resources, attorney-approved private practice paperwork, and our signature marketing e-course. Here are your co-hosts, Dr. Kate Campbell and Katie Lemieux.
Hey, Startup Nation. Welcome back to another episode of the Private Practice Startup Podcast. We are delighted you're here. We are on episode, I believe, 187, or maybe it's 186, depending on how our numbers are on the column of the spreadsheet that I'm looking at. And today is a special episode because Kate and I are going to be taking a journey way back in time.
Way back.
Talking about from failure to thriving, our private practice journey. So you're going to get an inside look and inside scoop on what our journeys were like in private practice. I know we've talked a little bit about them here and there, but I don't think we really went through the timeline. So we're taking a step back. We're looking at the memory filing cabinet to assure we pull out all the goods and all the failures that we had on our way and journey to thriving. But before we do that, we hope you guys joined us last week. Speaking of thriving, Cindy Norton I had met when she was an intern, and I was completely mesmerized by what she was doing in her business. She wasn't even seeing clients, but she had a website up. And I remember connecting with her. And the cool thing is we got to meet her in Asheville when we went and saw Laura and John and Allison, and we did a meetup there. And she's going to be talking to us how to book new ideal clients without answering your phone. So for those of you introverts who don't really like being on the phone, this podcast is going to be for you. And if you're just joining us for the first time, we want to welcome you in the Startup Nation family. We have a gift for you that is our A to Z cheat sheet, the essentials for building and growing your dream practice. Head over to privatepracticestartup.com. over to the resources tab, and there you will see it. And that comes with 5 days of practice building emails. Kate and I are really passionate about supporting you and growing the private practice of your dreams and really working with the clients that you absolutely love and adore. So if you've been listening to this podcast, you know a little bit about Kate and I. I'm not going to get into our stories because we're going to get into the stories of today and share with you a little bit about our private practice journeys. Okay, where do you want to start? I know we're going to start at the beginning.
Yeah, where should we start? Gosh, it's interesting to kind of think back, and we don't have any script. It's not pre-prepared. We're just going to kind of have the conversation flow and see where it goes as we both reflect back on our journeys. When I was in the graduate program at Nova down here in South Florida, I knew that I wanted to go into private practice. I guess I'll just dive in. So I knew that I wanted to go into private practice. I had a professor who told me at school that therapists didn't get into this field to make money, and shamed me attempted to shame me for the desire to want to be in private practice so that I could make a greater impact while making an income, while making a living. Because when you work in agency settings or other types of scenarios, you can barely make ends meet. And it's really rough, and it shouldn't be that way. It doesn't have to be that way. And I can remember on the inside, I was going, I'm going to keep it clean here and not say what I was really thinking. But basically I said, I'm not going to buy into that. On the inside, I didn't challenge the professor at that particular time because I just was not the challenging type. But I didn't buy into that BS belief that therapists can't make money while doing what they love. So anyways, I knew I wanted to go into private practice. I come from this family of entrepreneurs, and I had this, what I call the field of dreams mentality, which is just this innate belief within myself. I had the drive, I had the ambition, I had the passion and the desire to just get into business and figure it out. And because I come from this family of entrepreneurs, I thought, hey, they can do it, I can do it. You'd think coming from a family of entrepreneurs that I would have had the business know-how that I needed to learn about business before actually diving headfirst into business. So as I graduated with my master's and was starting the PhD program, I was a registered intern. I found an office space that I could rent from another colleague of mine who was licensed here in the state of Florida. And I remember paying a high amount of overhead for my rent. I got this big, beautiful office, bought all my furniture, artwork, had everything like aesthetically beautiful because I love the design element of building and growing private practices. That started way back a long time ago in 2006. And I had this beautiful office. I had my business cards. I had my business name let's just hit on that moment for a second, because that was a big mistake. I was in this philosophical class and I'm like, I don't want to limit myself. I want to work with everybody. And I'm just going to call my company Life's Connections. What the heck does that mean? So that was a big mistake, because I had no marketing experience, no brand, no ideal clients. I was a major generalist coming from that scarcity mentality of, I'm going to work with everybody, because I don't want to limit myself and I don't want to not have clients calling. So I made a lot of mistakes right off the bat. I can remember sitting in my office and waiting for the phone to ring, and it wasn't ringing. And the days are going by, the weeks are going by, and it was a really slow process of getting clients here and there, and I built my own website, and I kind of pulled up my bootstraps and just did a bunch of the work that I thought I should do. And I was scrambling. I was chasing all these shiny objects and didn't have a clear path. I had no marketing plan. I had no business plan. I was just really, really, really struggling. So I struggled like that for probably a good 6 months before I realized I need to go on a major mission of learning everything that I could about business and marketing and entrepreneurship. And at the time, there was only one resource for therapists out there, which was Casey Truffaut. And it was How to Be a Wealthy Therapist. So I remember watching her. It was like DVDs at that time, right? So watching the DVDs and learning as much as I could, and slowly starting to learn more about business, about what I needed to do differently. And there was a lot that I needed to do differently. I eventually ended up dissolving that brand and that LLC that I had created, because it was an epic failure and it was so unclear. Yes, the non-brand. And if you guys had seen my logo, you would laugh. We show it sometimes just to make fun of ourselves in presentations. And it was like this dancing K that kind of looked like a person. And I'm like, oh, that's cool and creative, whatever. Then I got the bill for it. It was like $500 for this crappy logo that I had to basically throw out.
That a 5-year-old could draw.
Yeah, it was crazy. So there was a million mistakes that I made in the initial stages of being a solopreneur. Finally, I got myself into a position where I could rent office space by the hour with a clinician who became my mentor, and I really learned a lot about business from them. And I was also on this journey of just loving to learn about marketing and entrepreneurship. And I was reading a bunch of books and going to trainings and learning as much as I could. And then when I graduated with a PhD, I knew I wanted to have a group practice. And that had always been my dream, to have a practice where other clinicians could work who are really passionate about what they do, specialize in different areas, because private practice can be isolating. And I didn't like that aspect of it. I really wanted to have that group feel where we could collaborate with one another and all of that. That was my vision. So when I graduated, when I was preparing to graduate, really for like the 6 months up and before graduating, I was working on my new brand of Bayview Therapy and getting really clear on all of the business plan, our marketing plan, and designing the brand and all of the elements and whatnot. So when I launched it, that first year, I was already over 6 figures. So I went from really struggling and failing on so many different levels to being able to be a business owner in private practice, and to being very, very profitable at that, and much more organized and whatnot. But there was several areas that I was still failing in, and I didn't even realize it. Those areas where I became a slave to the business. I had a group practice, and I had a lot of other colleagues who were a part of the group practice. I was taking all of the intake calls as they came in for the new clients, not to mention seeing over 20 clients a week myself, building the website, doing all the tech work, doing everything for the business. Here I am making over 6 figures, and I'm doing every aspect of the business. And I was drowning. I was working all day, nights. I was working on the weekends. I became a slave to the business. I had not learned yet the importance of taking that step back and really building the business around the lifestyle that I wanted to live. And I continued to be tied to the business. I'd made some strides with outsourcing and delegating, and I got an assistant, and I had an assistant for probably about 4 years before I went on maternity leave, maybe about 3 years before I went on maternity leave the first time. in 2015 when my son was born. And I can remember, we were just talking about this on a webinar the other day. I can remember being in labor, active labor, having contractions in the car, checking my emails, going to the hospital, calling Katie for the work that we were doing in not only one company with baby therapy micro practice, but having a second company on the side, right? I'm literally about to have a baby and I'm a slave to the business. So that was something that even though I had an assistant, I hadn't let go and hadn't systemized my business in the way that I needed to be able to step back and allow it to run itself so that I could really honor the stuff going on in my personal life and really be present for that. So that there was a big awakening process that I went through in during that time when I had my first son and going through some postpartum depression and anxiety and still having to answer calls and emails and all of this pressure from the business that I didn't have to be doing that, you guys. I didn't realize that at the time. So it's really powerful to be coming off of maternity leave now. Here we are in 2020 and 5 years later after all of those mistakes that I just shared with you guys and being able to have completely taken a 3-month maternity leave from my group practice and know that everything is running like clockwork. It's so systemized and streamlined and we have everything in place. So I don't have to be involved and it's still running. We're still making an impact and it's been the most profitable that it's ever been. So it's amazing to be in that place where finally I'm in the sweet spot with business and in group practice. And I've made so many mistakes along the way, as I'm sharing with you guys. And it's really rewarding to be able to look back and reflect and see just how far I've come and just how far we've grown and how many people we impact with having a team of over 20 clinicians and their full practices and being able to help all of the team really work with the clients they love the most and make the greatest impact. It's just super, super powerful. So that is kind of like the overarching journey of my private practice and a lot of the mistakes that I can think of off the top of my head. I know I've made a ton more, but this is part of the reason why Katie and I are so passionate about what we do, because we really love to be able to help you guys not make the same mistakes that we did, because we made a ton of them and we also learned from them. And it's, part of that process is fail fast and fail forward, but we don't want you to have to fail in the same ways that we did. We want you to be able to avoid the struggle. Being in business is hard. It's a lot of hard work. It takes a lot of determination and passion and grit, but you don't have to struggle like we did in the beginning. And I know Katie has her own different journey that she's going to share with you guys. So Katie, I'll throw it over to you.
Well, I have a few questions for you before I take it on. So right. I was curious to go back during the time that you were a solopreneur and during those first 6 months, like what were you doing for marketing when you didn't know like what you were doing? Oh my
gosh. All right. Well, what was I not doing? I was definitely doing the throw the spaghetti against the wall to see what sticks, right? So I had built a website on Dreamweaver. If any of you guys are techie, you know that this is like way back in like the early website
Sounds like
days.
A band.
Dreamweaver. It was torturous. So I built my website on Dreamweaver. It was the crappiest website ever. Terrible, terrible, terrible.
I remember it because you and I were in supervision together and I remember you showing, it had like these columns.
I don't even remember what it looked like. You guys, I wish I had taken pictures or screenshots, but I didn't have the know-how to do that at that point. And I had used images that I pulled offline, right? I thought, oh, how cool. You could just go online and save images and save them off of Google. And I don't even know if it was Google at the time. Wherever I found them online, I saved them. And then I got sued from Getty Images at the time. So that was another big mistake. Definitely own the rights to your images.
And I followed Kate's lead at the time because we were having supervision together. And she had mentioned that. And I was like, this is great. Who knew you had to pay for images? Who had money to do that? Oh my goodness.
Yep. So all these mistakes are coming back to me. And that was so long ago. But so I had this website, right? Crappy website. I had a horrible brochure that I had made that was all about me and wasn't about my ideal clients at all and how I could help them get what they want, right? So I was also networking because I was told that I needed to network. And I'm an introvert. I'm someone who, like, you put me in a crowd of people that I don't know, it is intimidating. It's exhausting. I can step into that extroverted role and make myself, get into the role of connecting with people and whatnot, but I leave and it is so draining. It's exhausting. It's not something that is enjoyable whatsoever. It's something that I would dread, but I would do it anyways. And I was networking with all of the wrong people. So there's a lot of things that I did in that first 6 months trying to get clients that was not working.
And so I like that you share both your journey as the struggles as being a solopreneur and then shifting into a group practice owner. So for me, well, I guess before I start, why don't we just take a quick break for our sponsor?
Perfect timing.
Okay, guys, it's sponsor time. You know what? Instead of reading a script about Gusto's payroll and benefits, we wanted to tell you what small business owners say, the people who use Gusto every day. Here's what one small business owner says. With Gusto, I think of payroll as a 30-second job. The website is so friendly and a joy to use. Friendly payroll? You don't hear that every day. And how about Amy from Utah? Amy says, I love Gusto so much. It's so painless. It's like going to the spa, and we have great options and rates, even though we're a super small team. Like going to the spa? Wow. And here's what Mneet says about Gusto's support team. Whenever something comes up, I reach out and literally 24 hours later, they tell us what to do or assure us that we've already handled it. Smart technology and friendly humans, that's super cool. Honestly, the list goes on, and right now our listeners get 3 months free when they go to gusto.com/PPS. Yep, 3 months of payroll, benefits, administration, and more, totally free. Again, that's gusto.com/PPS.
There are so many ways to keep your practice organized, but Therapy Notes is by far the best. Their easy-to-use, secure platform lets you not only do billing, scheduling, and progress notes, but also create a client portal to share documents and request signatures. Plus, they offer amazing unlimited phone support, so when you have a question, they're there so you can get help fast. Get started with Therapy Notes today, trusted by over 60,000 professionals. Go to therapynotes.com and enter promo code PPS, as in Private Practice Startup, and you'll get 2 months for free. Also, you can listen to episode 54, where we interviewed Brad Pleiner and took an in-depth view into their EHR.
For me, in this part of the journey, I've definitely shared. So I always say I grew up in mental health, community mental health, and I thought I would live and die there, which is such a sad thing to say because I don't know that I'd ever work for someone again. And I had been with one company, I think, for 11 and a half years. And a lot of the time that I had been with the company, I had actually been in management and leadership. And I really love leadership. And I really watched myself evolve over time as a leader and know how to run my programs and had so much joy and fun doing that. And it was really my staff that had the confidence and pushed me out and said, I shouldn't be here anymore. Like, I'm too good for this. Like, I need to go and be in private practice. Now, interestingly enough, is my dad's side of the family, they have owned businesses. And again, like Kate, like there was no like osmosis or by proxy, like information. No one ever talked to me about business. It was like, oh, you know, dad and grandpa, they have a construction business, and that was that. And so I knew nothing about business, and I was really afraid of business. I'm not really sure why, probably because it was the unknown, but I was really afraid. But my staff kept encouraging me, and I felt like, well, maybe this is just the next area of growth, and I needed to do that. And at the time, because I had been in management and leadership, I didn't do a lot of clinical, like seeing clients face to face. So I had that anxiety too, like, oh gosh, I'm like rusty, and now I'm going to go create a private practice. And you know, I've been doing the management and leadership stuff for a long time. So I did the balance of full-time work, part-time practice, and I began to grow that. And because I worked with children and families, that's really where I started off. So I was able to get a contract with ChildNet, which is like DCF down here. And I started seeing like the parents that needed services. So for a long time, I've run programs for kids with trauma, kids that had, you know, an abuse report on the parent. And so our programs would work with that. And I had a long-standing relationship with ChildNet. So I was able to get some clients there, and it wasn't a conflict of interest because we were children and family. We didn't serve adults. So I was getting some clients that way, and I still seeing like teens and families and doing a lot of family work. And I started getting some word of mouth referrals. And then I got a really good lead, and one of my friends connected me with a private practice down here in Florida. And so I had met with them, and I started getting some clients that way. So before I decided to leave, and so I opened up like officially opened up, I guess, like incorporated, I think in 2010. So this is actually my 10th year in 2020. And I remember creating my name, right? And probably many of you have done this. Hopefully you're way smarter than we were. But I remember like, it was all like about me. I don't know anything about business. And, of course I pulled the audience on Facebook, and I thought it would be really crafty and cool to utilize my last name, which is Lemieux, and Lemieux in French means the best. So I thought Lemieux Solutions Unlimited. Very much like Kate, life's connections, solutions unlimited. What the heck does that crap mean? I was just so proud of it. Pulled the audience, they agreed, and there I went and incorporated. Now, I mean, could I have done a DBA and changed my name? Sure, but it's just kind of the incorporation. It is what it is. But it really doesn't say anything. It doesn't say anything about what I do. And no one really knows how to spell my name. Anyways, thank God we don't write checks that much anymore, and it's just credit card. But I have had clients say to me, like, I kept seeing this bill on my credit card, and then I realized it was you. Right. Like, because you probably don't know my last name. People aren't remembering. Anyway, so I've had that name follow me around for a while. So I incorporated then back in 2010. And then in 2012, I decided to leave full-time work and go part-time. No plan, no marketing budget. Obviously, I thought whatever I was doing was working. I had about 8 to 10 clients. I don't even think I ran my numbers to see, like, could I sustain that? So what I do when I need to commit to something and move forward and I have fear is I start telling people, because it's worse for me to let others down than let myself down. So I'll start telling people because I have such a high level of integrity and I don't want to be a liar. So I have to do what I say. So I put in my 30-day notice and I left the company in November 30th of 2012. So I left my full-time job, my comfy, cozy job where I had a steady paycheck, although it wasn't much. And then I had to go on Cobra. $500 a month. And I remember, like, the referrals went down and I'm sitting in my house in the lazy boy kind of rocking chair creating my website. Now I had no idea how to market, how to create content that is attractive to your ideal client. I didn't have an ideal client. And it would take me 2 weeks, guys, to write one page. Now, definitely not as robust as the pages that Kate and I teach in the Marketing e-course and how we know we need to write now. And it was very academic. And then my partner would read it and she would say, "What does this mean?" I'm like, I didn't know how to have personality in my writing. I came from academic writing. I came from report writing. And that was kind of my page. And just like Kate, I was a generalist, right? Like I worked with children and trauma because I had run a trauma program and substance abuse and whoever else knows. So I was definitely a generalist as well. And, on my website it was all about me. I had this lovely banner in orange and I hate orange. It was the sunset because Florida, and there was a big picture of me on the side and then like family in the sunset and things like that. So I eventually changed that to like a pink and purple. But I did hate orange. And very much like Kate, I remember creating my brochure. And because I chose the orange sunset, I was like, well, let me make the brochure match at least the sunset. And so I chose these like orange and brown colors. And the brochure was all about me. It had like 3 of my pictures, talked about my credentials, quote unquote, my specialties, which were like 5. It was awful, guys. I actually do have that still saved. And that is one of the things that we show to folks in some of our presentations as well. So what other things did I do wrong? My goodness. So when I did get into private practice full time, the money went down and I started to panic, right? So I did get a part-time job and I was a clinical director of a substance abuse facility for a while, for only a period of 6 months. And I remember knowing that I needed SEO. I don't know why I knew that. I just knew I needed SEO. And so interestingly enough, I had found someone on LinkedIn who was the brother of someone that I had worked with. So it was cool. I felt comfortable. And he had said, "Oh, it's really easy. I could teach you how to do it." And if you guys know anything about me, I'm not like, I don't want to do tech. I don't want to know, like, I just want someone else to do it. So he did the SEO for my website, and I was also able to work with him and his wife now, Kat. So Alex and Kat, and they also told me about AdWords, right? And I got on AdWords early on, so that really helped my business. And interestingly enough, so I remember I first started, well, one of the things I did right is I did get coaching, a little bit of coaching early on and really kind of like looking at the business, but I didn't stay in coaching because I was just kind of getting the framework. And I, just like Kate, I had made that mistake of, purchasing an office for a year, getting into a year lease. That I worked through mentally in the sense of, I said to myself, well, if the worst that comes out of this is I lose $5,000 and see no clients, can I sustain that? And my answer was yes. So I was doing groups. Oh my gosh, you guys should have seen like my first office. It was horrendous. I had like the hand-me-down black pleather couch. I had a desk and a chair. And I remember my first client was a client that I used to work with when she was a teen. Now she was an adult and she had found me, and I had committed to $85 an hour and I slid down to $40, right? Because, hey, when I thought about it, community mental health only paid me, I don't know, $20+ an hour. So 40 was a leap up. Like, that was great. So I remember she came in and my office wasn't done and I had my desk and a chair. And like, that's where we first met, and that was okay. It was cool. I had run a group in there. I had maybe seen few other clients. And then obviously I couldn't sustain that place. And it wasn't conducive because it was like a room in a building, right? There was no waiting room. There wasn't much anything. So I remember looking for space. I remember, again, having the wherewithal to know that I wanted to work with people in the Coral Springs area. It's a little bit more affluent where we live. I really like the population there, the demographics. I really love the community there. So I was smart enough to get into Coral Springs and rent office space. Now I'm renting office space, right? So the budget's way down. It's not $5,000 for the year that I'm out. And I remember, some of my bad marketing stuff went on one of my colleagues, and my colleague, Susan, who's actually our startup coach now, Susan and I went to school together, and we share office space as well. So our paths have crossed so much. She was looking for office space too. And I said, oh, well, I'm going to be renting here. Do you want to join? So she talked to the woman and she joined as well. And so we knew we had a market. So we hit the streets, folks. No lie. Susan and I hit the streets. So what we did is we made little candy bags we're very proud of with our brochures that are all about us. And then we went literally door to door, up and down University Drive, close to us, meeting people, knocking on doors, going into doctors' offices, lawyers, whoever. Guys, like, there was no ideal client relationship. We're just telling people who we were, trying to get the word out. Do these stories sound familiar? No
relationship building, about the business card pushing.
It was awful. Of course, we didn't get any referrals. And I remember this is like the time of like the recession, right? And I remember we went to this one lawyer's office and she had just a bad money mindset. And she said something like, well, no one's paying for anything nowadays. And I remember like saying to myself, like, I had to put this block in my mind, and I was like repelling her thoughts. And I'm like, well, that's for you, not for me. That's for you, not for me. But like, so many things I did wrong. I also remember getting on an app called Gayborhood, right? So it was really for the LBGT community. And I had the second office location eventually in the area of like Wilton Manors, which is an LBGT community down here. And my office was in Oakland Park. So I thought, oh, perfect. Since I'm close here, then they'll want to come here. Again, I wasn't really serving the community. That wasn't necessarily my ideal client, but I thought because I was in that location, that would be a great idea. As I share all these stories, it's amazing that I made it, right? Like, so many mistakes. There was obviously so many triumphs as well. And what's interesting is Kate and I had served on the board of the Bar Association for Marriage and Family Therapists. Our journey actually started back in 2006 in supervision, but in 2012, I think it was, when we did serve as president and vice president, that's where Kate and I really learned how we worked well together. And that's why we decided to create a business. And while we were serving for the Broad Association for Marriage and Family Therapy, is we hosted national marriage seminars, and we got to actually go to, I don't think you had gone, Kate, but I had went to Gottman Level 1. And so for me, I never really knew about niche. And I think I remember before I started going to a whole bunch of couples trainings, is that I saw two couples. One was an affair client, which I'll often say sorry to them in my heart, because I shouldn't have been working with them, because that wasn't my specialty and I probably made a mess of their marriage, but it was a big learning lesson for me. So I was working with them and another couple, and I didn't have any couples skills or training. And I was like, this is just not working. Utilizing solution-focused brief therapy is not working for couples. And they just kept arguing. And I'm like, something has to be done. So we were able to go to that seminar. And then that, created this journey for me of going to 9 different couples trainings in 2 years. So my niche kind of found me, because what I found at the trainings was not this, need to help couples in a different way that actually was effective, But what I loved about the couples trainings was I got a lot out of that too. And it really shifted myself and my relationship. So as I started getting more involved in working with couples, utilizing the training, having more progress, seeing more progress in my relationship, my niche began to find me. And then I also specialize in affair recovery. So then I was able to take all of that and all the marketing stuff that, Kate and I had been learning myself, is really create a very cool, niche based brand, if you will, right? Well, I'll tell about the brand story too, because there's another story about that. Really a clear niche and know how to really specialize a certain area and be able to market that along the journey too. So this was, some people might call it a branding mistake. I don't call it a branding mistake because I've learned so much about branding. So another thing was like, I knew I needed a brand. I didn't know what that was. I didn't know what that looked like. And at the time I hired this couple who was awesome and amazing. It cost me $3,000. So it was pretty pricey. And they helped me create this really cool brand. And the brand is called Brainbox. So Brain, BOXE. And E stood for refreshingly unexpected or something like that. It was a really cool brand. They created the logos, all my marketing materials, that what I needed to say. They created this brand Bible. And I actually took a whole year and created Brainbox. And Brainbox, I had all these really cool ideas that I too at one point wanted a group practice, and I'm like, okay, we're going to serve like these people, and Pia matter in the brain is related to teens. So, okay, the teen person is like the Pia matter person. And, I was like, I don't remember what I had said. On my business card it said Katie Lemieux, the brain, because I was the brain of the operations and all this really cool stuff. And then it took me a year to create my website, and I didn't do all the designing aspect of it. But again, knowing what you guys knew about my story early on and really learning how to create specialty pages and writing content and stuff like that, it took me a long time. So the brain never, came to fruition in the sense that it never manifested itself fully in my practice, because one of the things that Kate and I talk a lot about is that your brand needs to be consistent. So I'm like, well, how can I have this beautiful brand and website and these beautiful logos and colors and this experience, and then people would walk into the office that I rent from? It was such a mismatch. I created the office in my mind of what I would change and the colors, and I would have even thought of having brain games on the TV, right? Like totally related to the brand. But I couldn't have clients come into this office that was completely inconsistent with the brand. So, I decided not to do group practice, continue to solopreneur, because Kate and I had been working together with private practice startups. So it's like two businesses. And so, I had to let the brand go. And that's okay. It was a learning experience because I learned so much about branding. My goodness, I feel like I could go on about all the mistakes, and I was like really trying to rack my brain of all the different things. So obviously along the way, I've learned a ton about marketing and AdWords and how to network appropriately. I remember even I signed up for 6 months with the Chamber of Commerce, which I thought would be a great opportunity. Well, again, I'm not working with people I wasn't networking with people who held my ideal client. So I gave it a 6-month go. And that's one of the things Kate and I talk about, is really tracking and measuring your marketing results and your efforts. But I would say now, being very strategic about choosing your marketing strategies is really important, rather than just doing the spaghetti on the wall marketing, which I did so much of. And again, as I share all this stuff, I'm surprised that I've made it as far as I've made it with all of the mistakes. But it really is knowing about how to market effectively, working with the clients that you're most passionate about, and really serving them in a way that most inspires you, because that's really when you authentically allow yourself to shine and you show up authentically as who you are, that's what people are attracted to. So Kate and I, from all of the noise, I think that we had in our journeys, is we've pulled all of that away and just kind of leave you guys with the essence of what you need to do to really create a business that inspires you as well as others, helps you work with the clients you love and really live that dream life. Some of the things that Kate had shared too, like becoming slave to the business. I was such a slave to the business. Oh my gosh. I remember when I was doing the dance between full-time work and part-time practice. Not much has changed because I still go to bed late and wake up early. But I remember working till like 1 a.m. and getting up at like 6:30 a.m. because I had to go to work, and it was always a large iced coffee from Dunkin' Donuts to try to get me through. That really has, not from Dunkin', but I always have coffee in the morning. That really hasn't changed. But, we've been able to create our businesses to really support a lifestyle that we want, and it's just been really cool to kind of watch the evolution. And when you are a business owner and you teach business at the same time, you continue to be able to tweak and evolve and shift and change. And it's just a really cool process. So I've enjoyed my journey. I remember in the first 2 years, though, there was a lot of scarcity mindset. I wanted to quit numerous times a day. And it was very funny because when I was like, that's it, I'm going back to agency work. I don't care. This is too hard. And I had my little moment, always I'd get a call and it was a potential new client. Right. So business ebbs and flows, it evolves. And that's a little bit about both of our journeys.
What would you say, as you reflect on your journey and you look back, when do you see as the turning point in business where things really started to flow and being streamlined and being very profitable? Because you've had a 6-figure private practice for many years now. So when do you see that turning point and what contributed to that?
That's a good question. So I don't remember how all of my timeline flows, right? I'm sharing all different aspects of the timeline. I think, when I started niching down in couples, right? And I also started getting business coaching as well. So I went on a year of business coaching. Now I believe it was already 6 figures at that point. I think there's so many little points, Kate, along that journey. I know one of the things that you had me look at was when we talked about my cancellation policy, right? And we talk about that when we talk about our paperwork course, right? Is that I had lost $10,000 in 1 year because I had a crappy cancellation policy, right? So I think it was those constant tweaking, but really niching down, of course, is really important. Getting the coaching and support, learning about, marketing and really picking specific marketing strategies that work for me in my life, right? So a lot of times people will say oh, you really only do kind of word of mouth and Google ads. And it's today, yes, actually at this point. And what's interesting is I don't do networking for my private practice. You and I do a lot of networking, and we do a lot of online networking for the private practice startup. And it's just different strategies for different businesses and really what's in alignment to us in regards to that. Because for me, my private practice, I answer the phone and I see the clients and that's it. Everything else is systemized. I don't need to touch it or do anything with it anymore. So, I think it is being able to be really clear and continuing to evolve and being coachable. If you're not willing to be coachable in business and you keep doing the same thing, that's the definition of insanity. So I don't know that there's any big specific moments, but it is learning all those aspects and then begin to put them together. And probably the greatest thing that you and I do is to teach this stuff, right? Because when you teach, you learn. And the more that we understand and know and learn, and the more that we get from our coachees and are able to teach and clarify and watch the results that they get, I think that really helps us in business. And
it's really powerful to have coaches that have been in the trenches, right? They've walked 100%. In your shoes. They know exactly what it's like to struggle and how hard it can be, right? And then have made so many of those mistakes and then also learned from all of the wins, and to be able to offer that wealth of information as you go through your own journey. It's not just someone's regurgitating information from what they've learned from somewhere online. We have lived it. It is in our bones. And to be able to inspire Startup Nation to have their dream practice and to build their business around the lifestyle that they really want to live, so that they don't make all the mistakes. They don't become a slave to the business. They can be happy. They can be fulfilled. They can work with clients that they absolutely adore. And it's just so powerful and so fulfilling for us to be able to do that.
Right. And I think also too, with us not only being in private practice, right, you offer the group practice experience. But interestingly enough, is when Kate and I created the private practice startup, which is actually really K2 Visionaries. We did do a DBA to that. That was our initial brand. And interestingly enough, is we going into a new business, which was a new realm, we had some of the same bad behaviors that we brought in, right? But then we really clarified, streamlined, and got really specific and practiced what we preach. And that really has made our work more enjoyable. It's made it more clear, focused, consistent, and also way more profitable. I mean, it's just amazing what we've created from where we started just 6 years ago with the private practice startup. So really just being that role model of practicing what we preach, and showing people what's possible.
Yes. So this has been fun to come on and just spontaneously talk about our stories and reflect on all of the struggles, and then how we really have overcome so much. And then that is something that's inspired us to be able to help you guys do the same.
And we really hope that this inspired you, because we want to just kind of share, like, man, we were probably worse than most of you listening to this podcast. And that's awesome. You know, like Kate said, we really didn't have those practice building resources when we first started. And, you know, we're honored to be able to be that resource for you. And, you know, we would love to invite you to not only listen to our podcast, be a part of our group, but if you're really feeling called to work with a coach and get really clear on your business, we would love the opportunity to support you in that. You can always check out that information. We do launch our marketing e-course and coaching program several times a year, but our marketing e-course is available at any time. So you don't have to wait to get your dream practice started. So you can always check that stuff out at privatepracticestartup.com and look at the coaching tab, and there you'll find information with that. And we also have our amazing startup coach, Susan Block, and she is working with folks who are in that new stage of practice, thinking about starting in 6 months, need a little bit more support, hand-holding, want to go at their own pace. So her information is up there too. And really, it's just our way to serve you, because this is what we're passionate about. I mean, I'm getting chills just reflecting. We just had a podcast with Sean Davis. I'm thinking about Elizabeth Olivares, and the results that people produce are just pretty mind-blowing. And I know when Kate and I first started coaching, we knew people were going to get results, but the results that we're getting, they're way beyond what we ever thought. So really, that's our gift back when we get to serve you guys. So we hope you guys enjoyed this podcast. I know we had a ton of fun just sharing our own journeys and reflecting back on all of the crazy mishaps that we had. We do hope that you guys join us next week. We haven't had our topic yet. We have some other cool topics that we're looking to come out. So you guys will have to check that out next time.
And let's take a moment for our Startup Nation superhero shout out for today's episode. And that comes from Haley. Haley says, Dr. Kate and Katie's marketing e-course is an absolute must for therapists looking to start or grow their private practice. It's helped me to attract my ideal clients. Their self-study course is easy to navigate, full of information, #ninja tips, resources for how to fill your practice with the clients that you love most. And while most therapists shy away from marketing, Dr. Kate and Katie provide tools that will help you authentically showcase your unique talents and gifts so that you can position yourself to be the best fit for your ideal clients. Haley, thank you so much for giving us that feedback about your experience in our self-study, the marketing e-course experience. And we love to be able to hear these reviews, get the feedback, and even for those of you who are just listening to the podcast and you're able to take the information, whether we're teaching it in a course or our signature program or just from the free content that we produce, we love knowing that the content that we're producing is on point for you guys and that it's making an impact and helping you to really have the business that you deserve to have and live that life that you've always dreamed of. So definitely subscribe, rate, and review our show, and give us an email here or there. That's something that always makes our day and continues to inspire us to want to inspire you more.
Yes. And if you're not with us already in Facebook, check out the Private Practice Startup and join our group. And there we will connect with you and our whole community of almost 8,000 therapists, I think, at this point across the globe. So that's really exciting. Startup Nation, thanks for allowing us to inspire you from startup to mastery, and have an awesome and inspired day, everybody. Take care.
Thanks for joining us on The Private Practice Startup. Visit theprivatepracticestartup.com for awesome resources, free trainings, attorney-approved private practice paperwork, and so much more.